Big post-free agency winners heading into 2026. We talked about the guys changing locations. Now let's talk about the guys they left behind. We'll do winners in this video, and then I will talk about the poor losers in a separate video who will offer legitimate league-winning upside in 2026. Let's find out. 2025 was the strangest year for Emeka Egbuka. He got off to that incredibly hot start, one of the hottest that we have ever seen from a rookie. In the first 5 weeks of the season, he had 5 touchdowns in 2 games with over 100 yards. Mind you, this was over a very tough defensive stretch against teams like Houston and the New York Jets before their trades, obviously, Philadelphia and Seattle. And it's also really important to note that those 200-yard games came in games where Mike Evans was injured. So we literally saw him thriving in tandem with a healthy Mike Evans, and then we saw him take over as the clear wide receiver one with massive upside. However, after that, the entire season went sideways, and he had literally just one game where he had 1 touchdown and eclipsed the 100-yard mark, one for the entire season after that hot start. He was basically the reverse Brian Thomas Jr. That breakout and then dipping in production is very concerning, especially considering that he was definitely the wide receiver one in theory for a large portion of that downturn in production. However, we can take solace in the fact that things went sideways for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in general, right? It was not just Emeka Egbuka. Baker Mayfield straight up did not look like Baker Mayfield. He looked completely different from the guy we had seen in recent years, and it became glaringly obvious that their new offensive coordinator was a clear problem, and we weren't seeing that continuity of the offensive success that we saw under previous offensive coordinators, Liam Cohen and Dave Canales. Under this new offensive vision in 2026, with Mike Evans gone and with Chris Godwin now 30 years old, it stands to reason that Emeka Egbuka can recapture that early season magic and offer massive upside in 2026. He will likely be one of the more controversial picks in this draft season. He is currently ranked on the high end of wide receiver 3. Clearly, that should move up over time as people start updating rankings more. However, in all likelihood, we won't have to pay an egregious price for him, and he could be one of the stronger value picks with legitimate overall wide receiver one upside. Since the exit of Davante Adams, the Green Bay Packers receiving corps has been an absolute nightmare for fantasy football. We are not asking the Packers to produce another Davante Adams. We are simply asking them to commit to a wide receiver one. I don't think that's asking for too much. Now, technically speaking, Romeo Doubs was their wide receiver one. He was not treated as such, and he definitely didn't produce as such, but he had 85 targets, which for any other team is not wide receiver one numbers, but it was 30 more targets than the next highest pass catcher, Christian Watson. And Dobbs has been the most consistent Packers receiver for several years now. Logically, with 85 vacated targets and with all the Packers receivers currently healthy and hopefully a fully recovered Tucker Kraft, someone has to step up as the clear leader in this receiving corps, but can we trust that? That is the big question that we have. Instinctually, we will look at Christian Watson. Watson's lack of production hasn't been because he has been outperformed by anyone. He's been great. It's been that he hasn't been able to stay on the field and stay healthy. And Romeo Doubs, being the target leader and the most consistent receiver, has technically been the result of him being the only one that has been consistently healthy as a pass catcher. But the exit of any receiver is a good thing for the remaining Green Bay receivers. They are all winners here. We just have to pay close attention and try to figure out which one of them can actually step up and stand out. Again, Christian Watson has the clear most upside, but we have zero proof that he can be a volume receiver. Jaden Reed does make sense logically as a volume receiver, and he will absolutely have a lower ADP than Christian Watson, so perhaps he's the value pick, maybe. But then again, Watson just has looked straight up better than him. But then we also have Matthew Golden, whose rookie campaign was obviously underwhelming due to lack of usage. However, when he was actually utilized, you saw exactly why they took him in the first round. He is extremely solid and a very reliable receiver if they were to actually push volume to him. Then you have Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft does appear to be the safest bet here. We just need to see how he recovers from this injury. Following the Packers news this offseason, their workouts, their training camps is going to be extremely critical for us because we have to figure out some kind of tip-off in terms of where the best fantasy value is for us, because Somebody here for the Packers is a winner. The departure of Travis Etienne has officially cleared the way for Bhayshul Tuten's season in Jacksonville, and I know that fantasy managers everywhere are super excited for this one because he was definitely one of those favorite sleeper picks last year. And while it didn't really turn out to be massive upside from a fantasy perspective last year, the numbers from 2025 weren't huge, but they were encouraging. It was a very solid season for him. The most glaring takeaway that we have last year is his red zone efficiency. Tuten handled 23 attempts in the red zone and turned 4 of those attempts into rushing touchdowns. And what is more impressive is that all of those rushing touchdowns, those 4 rushing touchdowns, came from inside the 5-yard line. So there is clearly a level of goal line trust there. But it's not just about being a goal line hammer. We've got to have the receiving upside for him to succeed in 2026. When we're looking at the red zone efficiency, he only had 2 receptions in the red zone, but he did turn both of those into touchdowns. Very encouraging there. What we really have to see is the level of receiving usage increase in general. Do they truly trust him to step into Travis Etienne's role as a 3-down back? Because Etienne's receptions weren't massive, but they were very impactful. He was an extremely trustworthy receiving option that Trevor Lawrence could rely on, not just for checkdowns, but for big play reception as well. So we need to see, we've got to pay attention this offseason and see if that is something that is going to directly translate over to Bhayshul Tuten. So when we're looking at what they have now, right, we had Chris Rodriguez added to the Jags backfield. That is not a concern. I think it is pretty clear at this point that Bhayshul Tuten has the early down and goal line trust there. So that's not the competition that we're worrying about. What we're worried about and what we want to pay attention to here as we continue to move forward is whether or not the Jags draft specifically a receiving back, a dynamic pass catcher on day 2 of the NFL draft, someone that could steal that 3rd down work and give us a kind of muddied, annoying backfield, if you will. If that doesn't happen, then we are in prime position for Bhayshul Tuten to be potentially one of the biggest winners of this free agency transition of Travis Etienne to New Orleans. So this one is highly critical for us. The Alec Pierce contract was a huge confidence boost that he will move forward as the Colts wide receiver 1, and that is fantastic. I like him. But we should not overlook the fact that Michael Pittman's exit really benefits Tyler Warren and Josh Downs. And I want to focus on Tyler Warren here because that is where the biggest upside lies. I have one rule with tight ends. I need a guy who is the top 2 in looks on his team in terms of receiving. I need you to be the second look at worst in the offense, and that is exactly what Tyler Warren will be this year. Logically, the Colts will draft a receiver for sure, right? With Pittman gone and Adonai Mitchell traded last year, there's clearly a depth issue. An investment into a receiver in round 4 or later makes sense as long as they don't do something crazy and draft a receiver in the top 50 picks. We should proceed with Warren being the second look in this offense, and quite frankly, maybe even the first look, because that is exactly what he was last year. He led the Colts in targets with 112 targets, just 1 more than Michael Pittman. The issue, though, was that he only had 4 touchdowns and that his production obviously really dropped off when Daniel Jones was injured. Pittman's exit will open up targets, but more importantly, it's going to open up those big-bodied red zone looks. Pittman had 5 touchdowns inside the 20. 3 of those were inside the 5. Increased red zone looks are key here for unlocking the true overall tight end 1 upside that Tyler Warren absolutely has. He is a big winner here, and we are big winners here because Warren's ADP physically cannot go higher than round 5. Even if we get a bunch of hype videos and news that Warren is going to be the first look in this offense, it's going to be in a massive season, he is never going to surpass Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, or Colston Loveland. He cannot go higher than tight end 4. So we can draft 2 running backs and we can draft 2 wide receivers and we can still grab a tight end named Tyler Warren in round 5 that could legitimately be a 100 receptions guy this year. Our last winner here is whoever the Seattle Seahawks draft at running back. If you watch my live shows, which by the way are every Wednesday at 8 p.m. EST, we have talked about this a ton. In the live chat, we debated if there would be a significant veteran signing for Seattle to hold them over until Zach Charbonnet is ready to play, because logically, Charbonnet's timeline can't be week 1. We will likely see him on that late October at best timeline. we had some free agency adjustments. They signed Emmanuel Wilson and retained George Halani. And Emmanuel Wilson did show very well. I like him a lot, right? I'm a Packers fan. He did show very well in relief of Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. And there's possibility that there could be some other names that could be coming around potentially as well in free agency that are still remaining. But the draft is what's critical here, because no one available in free agency right now is going to be signed to be a true lead back at this point. There is a very good chance that the Seattle running back, whoever they draft, is going to be the running back of the future for Seattle, because Zach Charbonnet is a 2027 free agent. So rather than waiting to see how Charbonnet comes back from his injury and then try and figure out if you're going to re-sign him in 2027, I bet Seattle just goes ahead and drafts their heir apparent now, because they've clearly had no problem drafting running backs earlier when they didn't actually need them, and they do need one now, so it makes a ton of sense, especially since they can realistically get a guy that would fit their system very well in the second round. And obviously, they have been excellent in terms of scouting in general, and they have hit in the second round twice on Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So I trust Seattle's front office. If they see a back that they like and they draft him on day 2, I will have the utmost confidence that that is the back that we want to invest in. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can find me across all social media platforms at It's Tera Time, so make sure that you are logged in, tune in, subscribe, turn on notifications. We are heading right into draft season here, so there's more content coming your way, so stick around.